Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 768. My opponent started off with e4 and I decided to go with e5, and my decision was rewarded with the King's Gambit, f4. Yeah, I don't see this too often, but it's a nice move. It's always fun to play these exciting Gambit games. This is not so great for white, but it's not like it can be refuted either, and it leads to interesting play. So anyway, taking the pawn is the most principled decision here. There's a couple other ways to play if you want to look for other ideas if you don't like the main lines. Bishop c5 is a way to decline the gambit because white can't take at this point. You have the queen check and things fall apart in a hurry. So black needs to shore up the center after that move, and it gives you time to play d6. So bishop c5, d6 is the way to decline the gambit. And d5 is an interesting counter gambit, the Falkbeer counter gambit. But you can take the pawn. And then knight f3 and bishop to c4 are the two main moves, and my opponent chose the bishop c4 move, the bishop's gambit. Now queen h4, you can see the top choice in the database. This is not the best reply, although I've played this myself. It's kind of interesting. So let's just take a look at it. Queen h4 check. You know, there's always the idea that he might blunder by trying to push the pawn here, and that loses immediately. The only move here that doesn't lose, you know, maybe king e2 is actually playable, but king f1 is the only move in the database, and other moves lose very quickly. So that's why this is kind of an attractive move here. You get your queen out in a hurry, harassing your opponent's king. You're actually defending your advanced f-pawn, and you're forcing him to move again, so he can't move his king, so he can't castle. And then you can follow up with g5, holding on to the pawn. Knight c3, kicking the queen, and the queen needs to drop back somewhere. But the thing about this line is that, oddly enough, the queen finds itself a bit out of play over here, and white can survive this attack. So there's just not enough in black's counterattack here to really worry white, and white has time to get another pawn in the center and get his pieces out. So it's actually an okay game for white. So I don't think that's the best move here, even though it's the top choice in the database, and I have played it myself. The immediate d5 can be played here, going after the bishop in a similar fashion to what I played, but I think knight f6 is actually technically the best move here, and leads to interesting play. He goes knight c3, that's the main move. Yeah, this is to shut down my idea of playing d5. I want to play d5 in response to e5. And I still want to play that, but I can't play it right now because he's got too much force on the d5 square, so I can throw in the move c6. This c6 move also has the advantage of controlling some of those squares that the knight is looking at. So in many of these King's Gambit and Vienna Gambit lines where there's a knight on c3, c6 is often a good reply here. Now he went d4, so that's a rare move. Bishop b3 is the most common reply here, and then black is going to play d5 anyway, and after in this position, this is like the main line, black can actually hold on to the pawn for a little bit longer. This is more for an annoyance factor, I think, than anything else. It's not like black is going to win with that extra pawn, but as long as you hold on to this pawn, it kind of inhibits the development of white's dark squared bishop. So it is kind of an annoyance that you're holding on to the pawn, even if white eventually wins it. And you can use that annoyance factor to try and complete your development as black. So I think this line is okay for black, but white is probably okay as well. Let's see. Notice that he can't take the pawn because after the trade, say knight takes, bishop takes, you have a move like bishop here with check, and he's going to have to give that piece up. So that pawn is still defended on d5. Anyway, let's go back to the game. In the game, he played d4, and that is a rare move, although it makes some sense. But I think black starts to get a pretty good advantage after this move. Let's see, the chess engine and the opening book both wanted me to take back with the pawn right away. And that makes sense now that I look at it, but I took with the knight. The knight is also holding on to this pawn for a moment longer, and the knight takes d5 is the main response. He plays that, but he throws in the move queen e2. I block here, and we're out of the book, so we can just look at this from the notation tab. And then he takes the knight. I take back, and then, well, he throws in bishop b5 check. Actually, I don't think that helped a whole lot, but it is with tempo. Maybe he was worried I would find some way to defend the pawn, but probably not. I would probably just castle, given a free move, or develop the bishop. And let's see, he castled queenside. So in this position, we've completed our initial development, and I'm just ahead in development. He's got this knight that he hasn't developed yet, and I have pretty active pieces. So I'm happy with this the situation as it is. Although my pawn structure is a bit more scattered than his, but my king safety is a little better. His king has still got to have one more move to get to safety. But if you look at the pawn structure, he has 4 pawns and 2 pawns, and whereas I have 3, 1, and 2. So in a sense, he's got a better pawn structure, but the deficit in development is more than enough to give the advantage to black here. In fact, the chess engine is giving black an advantage of like 1 pawn almost. And well, you can see why. I mean, it's my turn. I get to complete my development, and now all my pieces are on active squares. And of course, the rook is coming to the c file, looking at his king there. I have knight b4 ideas. So yeah, this the fact that I have a lead in development is a big advantage in this particular type of position. It's a nice open position. And in fact, that comes to bear immediately with this after he plays knight f3. This move, which is a natural developing move, is actually a mistake. You might think the antidote to being behind in development is to just develop your pieces, but you have to be aware of all your opponent's threats. And you know, my ideas on the c file and with knight b4 are just too strong, and he really needs to deal with it. And the best way to deal with it, according to the chess engine, is just take off the knight right now. And this is at a point in time when I have to take back with a pawn. So now the c file is closed, and so I can't double up on the c2 pawn. You know, I get the b file in exchange, and I'll probably play for that. But this has bought white enough time to complete his development, and he could play on in this position with some disadvantage, but not maybe not a losing position. It's a pretty good position for black, though. I mean, I have the bishop pair and still have an edge in development, and ideas for attacking his king. So definitely black is better, but well, white could play on. After knight f3, it gets really difficult. I go for knight b4 right away. Rook c8 was even stronger according to the chess engine, but this is also good. Let's see, and then bishop a4 is not the best defense. The best defense here is, according to the engine, bishop d2, which just gives up a pawn. So now I've gained some material, and not only that, it's a pawn in front of his king. He has to handle this very carefully. For example, if he plays bishop a4, that's a mistake. Rook c8, and you know, I'm taking advantage of his king being on this file, and he's in big trouble. If the king moves, he's still going to be subject to a discovered check from the knight moving, and if he takes the knight, then of course I take with the rook or bishop and break through that way. So that's losing. He needs to play the move bishop to d3 here and block my bishop, and then after the trade, now rook c8 defending, and now his king can go to b1. And, you know, well, I'm a pawn up and I'm attacking, so much better, but he survives. He survives for a while. Anyway, bishop a4. He also survives in this line, but it's slightly worse than the other line. So knight takes a2, check. King goes here, and then I just come back to b4. And now he plays knight e5, and this is the, well, ultimately the losing move. I mean, maybe he was losing before, but it's kind of a slow loss at this point. You know, he could play bishop d2, try and chase my knight back. I can go rook c8 immediately, and let's see, he takes, I take, and He gets rook h to f1 in. Bishop to e4. Now, I wonder about... oh, his bishop is on it. Yeah, I can't take on c2. His bishop is defending it. Bishop e4 and queen b5. And, well, the material is... I'm up one pawn, and I have the bishop pair. And the chess engine gives me about a 1.5 advantage, which is basically just the material advantage. It means that in other factors, white has at least got his pieces out and they're playing. So it would be a game from here after where I have a big advantage, but it would take a while for me to win that. And in a long game, of course, anything can go wrong. But knight e5 loses very quickly and drastically. Well, I don't know. It's about 5 moves to get to a position where it's obvious that he can't avoid the mate anymore. It starts with rook to c8. And a pretty natural move, just continuing to pile up on his c-pawn, which is now pinned. He's trying to get his king out of trouble, but it walks from one form of trouble to another. He goes with rook d2 to defend the c-pawn. Now I bring my queen in. Looking at this open A file, he drops his bishop back, which controls some of the squares, but not all of them. Particularly the A1 square is open. And let's see, and then I go bishop f6, which is the best move here. But there was another move that was pretty much equally as good. Depending on how long you let the chess engine run, it'll prefer one move and then the other. So I just thought I would show this nice tactical idea. Rook takes c2. So it looks like this pawn was adequately defended. In fact, it is. So I'm losing a piece here. Well, there's a trade of rooks, and then I lose the bishop. But I get this check. And because he couldn't take with the queen, he didn't want to lose the queen. My knight's still on the c2 square, so he had to take with the bishop. And then the bishop lets loose. It has to release its grip on the a2 square, so the queen comes in. King moves, and then the other rook comes over to the c file. And I'm getting my material back, and the attack is continuing. And the chess engine rates this as like minus 6 or 7 for black, which is similar to the rating it gave to my move, this bishop f6 move. And also bishop d6 with the same idea. Those are both good moves. The idea is pretty simple. Just trade off that knight. The knight was guarding the c6 square. Just trade off that knight so that I can get my rook into the action. So it's one of those positions where you don't really think about things like, oh, the bishop pair advantage and stuff like that. I'm willing to give up the bishop pair advantage in exchange for a mating attack, and that should be your attitude. Let's see. He played h3, but really nothing helps at this point. There's I didn't have any option, and basically everything is losing. If he moves the knight away, for example, then I can play rook c1 immediately. This way, rook c6 immediately. This way, at least he gets his queen to the center here, and he's hitting my my bishop. But I don't even have to defend the bishop. This is entirely correct. I was curious to look at this with the chess engine, because in the game you're never 100% sure. There might be something you missed. At least I'm never 100% sure. So you hate to sacrifice a piece unless you're sure. But well, this looked as close to a sure thing as I could find. Let's see. He played rook to c1. I'm not sure what that does, but well, it leads to a mate after rook a6. Just to show this, rook c1, rook a6, and there's no way for him to stop the mate on the a file. He can throw in some useless checks or block with the bishop for a move or two, but even moving the f-pawn forward doesn't help because my knight is covering the escape square. So that loses very quickly. Chess engine says best here is queen back to e2, and after rook a6, take the rook off with the queen. And of course, in this position, I haven't even given up any material. Let's see, I've got a queen, a rook, and 2 pieces against, I'm up a queen for a rook, and the attack is continuing, so that's pretty hopeless as well. Anyway, he played rook c1, I played rook a6, and he resigned. So a nice game, always fun to look at another line in the King's Gambit. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon.